everybody. I would like to share testimony with you about 18 months ago, that I led a trip for Open Doors to Lebanon, where we visited a refugee camp, mostly made up of Iraqi and Syrians. And I led the trip, and there were 9 other people on the trip. But as we entered the country at the airport, I was deported. And the rest of the team went through, and they had the privilege of spending a week in the country. And I was taken to a small room, was interrogated in Arabic, and there was only one guy with broken English, and they were very upset that I had come to their country, and they took my passport, and there I was stuck. No cell phone, no internet connection, no Wi-Fi, no water, and I felt very sorry for myself. I was put in a small room and told to wait. That's the only English word that this guy understood, was wait. And I sat there waiting, and I waited, and I waited, and my self-pity, because here I have a group of people going in. They can enjoy the tour, meet persecuted Christians, go to a refugee camp. They hosted a camp for about 60 refugee children, a whole program that was designed to encourage these young children who have no identity. Some of those children don't know whether they are Iraqi or Syrian, and they are in a refugee camp in Lebanon. But I felt that I could feel sorry for myself. I mean, the 3 W's of persecution came up to us in the West. You know, if you're in the West, your persecution is no water, no Wi-Fi, and no woolies. And after a couple of hours, close on 24 hours of sitting in a room, the same guy came, and he gave his second English word to me, which is come. So I thought, great, let me go with him. And I stood up, and he marched me off through all the back corridors of the airport in Beirut, and he took me to an Egypt Air aeroplane, and they placed me in the back corner with a burly air hostess giving me about 6 hours in Egypt, at the Cairo airport. A police officer came, and he said, I have a choice. I can purchase a ticket, or I can up my ticket and travel back to South Africa, which cost me about $2,500. Luckily, I had the cash on me, and I could purchase the ticket. Got onto the plane. 8 hours later, arrived in South Africa without my luggage, which was stuck somewhere in Lebanon, feeling very sorry for myself. When the rest of the team returned a week later, I chatted to one of the ladies who was on the trip, and she told me about a woman they'd met. They'd spent some time in her tent in the refugee camp. And I heard the story of this woman whose husband was killed in front of her and her children, and how she fled over the mountain range between Syria and Lebanon, with a kid on each hip and one in the hand. And it took her 10 days without the 3 W's, no water, no Wi-Fi, no woolies, to reach Syria, to reach Lebanon, from where she was placed in a refugee camp. And I just realized how dare I complain about my 36 hours of no W. And there she was, in a refugee camp, lost her husband, lost her home, As she fled over the mountains on foot, she had no water. Her babies didn't have nappies. She had to use plastic bags. Eventually she would, in the rocky hillside, dig out roots of plants and squeeze them to get some moisture for her children. And yet there she was, full of faith, full of positivity, grateful that she was safe. So her testimony helped me get over myself and my small problems. So thank you for the opportunity, and I just want to pray for her. God, I pray for this lady, whom I never met, who had an ordeal of seeing her husband being killed, fleeing over the mountains with her children, no food, no water, no Wi-Fi. And yet there she is, a testimony to us all. Father, I pray for her and those like her, for those children that I never got to meet. You know each one of them by name. Father, I pray that you will be their supplier. I pray that you'll be their provider and their protector. We just want to honor you for your goodness. In Jesus' name, amen.